They say some men are born to build. Some are born to fight. Some to run. I was born to fix. It wasn't something I chose. It was a shape the world carved into me early, through busted bike chains, broken door hinges, friends who drank too much, and girls who cried in the dark but swore they were fine. I was the guy you called when things stopped working. The guy who showed up with tools and a canvas bag and quiet in his voice. The kind of quiet people trusted. And I liked it. I liked being useful. I liked being needed. I liked that moment when something broken suddenly snapped back into place beneath my hands. My name's Cole. I'm 35 years old, and I can fix almost anything. Engines. Pipes. Drywall. Radios. Leaky hearts. Even once, a horse barn after a lightning storm. People say that's a rare gift, to be someone who can take what's damaged and make it whole again. But that gift comes with a curse too. Because it teaches you to believe that everything is fixable. Even a lie. Even a life. Even love. Samantha was like that, in a way, something beautiful I thought just needed care. Attention. Time. I met her at the back of a hardware store, of all places. She was looking for paint thinner and couldn't reach the shelf. I handed it to her without a word, and when our fingers touched, she smiled like she knew I was already hers. I fell hard. Fell quietly, like a man falling through water. She was unlike anyone I'd ever met, sharp and warm, confident in a way that didn't push, just was. She'd sit at my workbench with her legs folded under her like a child, sipping iced coffee and reading legal documents aloud with a voice that turned even litigation into something soft. Her favorite color was saffron. She hated bananas. She always wore one ring too many. Her laugh was round and contagious, and when she touched me, lightly, with the back of her fingers, I felt like I was the center of gravity. She didn't need fixing. She was already whole. But still, I tried. I built her shelves when we moved in together. Reinforced the kitchen table when she said she wanted to have kids someday. I sealed the windows. Changed the locks. Changed the oil in her car. Changed the way I spoke around her friends. I loved her like a craftsman loves his work, diligently, deliberately, with hands that had never known hesitation. And for a while, that was enough. More than enough. 7 months ago, she told me she was pregnant. I remember the way she said it, laughing through tears, holding the test in one hand like it was too fragile for her to trust it. I remember touching her stomach like I could feel life blooming under her skin, as if my fingertips could recognize my own blood taking shape. I didn't cry. I just held her. Quietly. And then, later that night, I began building again. I cleaned out the garage to make space for a crib. Started sketching plans for a treehouse, one with a trap door, a rope ladder, a telescope. I imagined teaching him how to sand wood. How to find the stud in a wall. How to tell the truth, even when it's the hardest thing in the world. I imagined this little boy with her eyes and my stubbornness. I imagined him laughing in the back seat. I imagined holding him on my shoulders during his first baseball game. I imagined years. And then, a month later, something changed. Something small. Something quiet. A hesitation in her kiss. A faraway look when I asked about baby names. A moment, just one, when I caught her looking out the window like the world outside was more hers than the one we'd made together. I wanted to ask. I should have asked. But I was a fixer. And fixers don't ask why something's broken. They just grab the tool. And go to work. I started waking up before her. Not because I had things to do, but because I was listening. To her breathing. To her movements. To the spaces between them. There's a silence that comes when something begins to break, not loud, not sudden. More like an absence. Like a screw loosening in a floorboard you step on every day but only notice once it starts to creak. That's what it was like with Samantha. Little things. Nothing you could point to and say, this is wrong, but still, the air felt different. She stopped humming in the mornings. She used to hum while she brushed her teeth, little fragments of songs she half remembered. Now the bathroom was quiet. She still kissed me goodbye, but not like before. No more fingers lingering on my neck, no more whispered I love you as the door shut. She was still warm. Still kind. But something in her eyes had cooled. I didn't know what to do with that. So I fixed what I could. I repainted the nursery even though she said she liked the original color. Installed a better water heater. Replaced the grout in the upstairs bathroom. It wasn't for her, not really. It was for the world I wanted to believe still existed. The one where she loved me the way she used to. The one where that baby growing inside her was ours. But my hands couldn't fix the way she kept checking her phone at night, turning the screen away. Or how she started locking her laptop. Or how she laughed at texts she didn't share. And then one morning, she left her computer open. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear to God I wasn't. I just meant to close the lid before making breakfast. But there it was, her browser tab still up. A DNA service site. I clicked. Not because I doubted her. But because I doubted me. Because part of me whispered, you're being paranoid. She's stressed. Let it go. I should have. I didn't. She had already uploaded her genetic profile. That's what the screen said. I clicked through. She had requested a paternity confirmation. My name was listed in the database, tied to a 23andMe style kit I'd done last year for fun. The system had auto-compared us. Result, 0% match. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't hitch. I just stood there, coffee cooling on the counter behind me, as if someone had dropped a pane of glass between me and the world I thought I knew. There was no note. No explanation. No I can explain. Just data. Truth, stripped of emotion, presented in clinical font and sterile percentages. She knew. She knew. And she hadn't said a word. Not when we painted the nursery. Not when I kissed her stomach and told her I couldn't wait to meet our son. Not when I held her from behind and told her she was more beautiful now than I had ever seen her. She looked me in the eyes and smiled through all of it. And she lied. I didn't confront her. Not that day. Not the next. I just watched. Observed. Collected moments like puzzle pieces I had never thought to question. Her phone buzzing during dinner. Her sudden interest in prenatal yoga on Thursdays. The smell of cologne that wasn't mine, faint but unmistakable, clinging to her coat. I became quiet. Careful. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and chose not to care. I found his name in her email drafts. Alex. Just Alex. The kind of name that felt like a mistake you justify with nostalgia. He lived 20 minutes away. I found his Instagram. He liked every post of hers for the past year. Even the ones she didn't tell me she'd uploaded. And just like that, I became something else. Not a husband. Not yet a father. A shadow. Watching. Waiting. Plotting, not revenge, not yet. Just clarity. Just the truth. Because when you're a fixer, and something can't be repaired, there's only one question left to ask. How do I take it apart without breaking myself in the process? It happened on a Wednesday. Rain on the windows. A roast in the oven she hadn't seasoned right. The baby kicking beneath her skin. Everything looked normal. Smelled normal. But I wasn't. She was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands curved protectively around a mug of chamomile tea. She wore that oversized gray sweater with the frayed cuffs, the one she always slipped into when she wanted comfort without having to say she needed it. Her phone buzzed beside her. She didn't move. I watched her glance at the screen, just once, and let it go dark again. Alex. I knew it before I saw it. The air was thick between us. Damp. Charged. Like the hour before a tornado touches down. She looked up. You're quiet lately. I didn't answer. You okay? She asked. That's when I exhaled. Set down the wrench I wasn't using for anything. Stepped into the silence I had built like a shelter and decided to burn it down. Do you love him? She blinked. Her lips parted. Then closed again. The color in her face drained, not in a dramatic way, but like a slow leak. What? I asked if you love him. Alex. The mug clinked softly against the table. Cole, what are you talking about? I smiled. Cold. Tired. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not when I already know. Silence. Her hands trembled. I watched her fingers grip the porcelain tighter. You went through my things, she said. I laughed. Not bitterly. Not loudly. Just enough. That's what you're opening with? She stood then. Slowly. Like her body was moving before her mind caught up. Her eyes glossed with a shimmer of tears that hadn't fallen yet. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, I said. It wasn't supposed to happen at all. Her voice cracked. I was scared, Cole. Of what? Me. The man who made your coffee every morning. Who massaged your swollen ankles at night. Who painted the nursery and practiced lullabies when you weren't home. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a hell of a lot like you built a life with me while holding a secret in your chest like a landmine. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them. I thought it was over, she said, her voice small. With him. It was stupid. It was quick. I didn't even think I could get pregnant. My heart thudded once, slow and hollow. So you lied. Every day. You let me dream a future with a child that isn't mine. I was going to tell you. When? When he started to look like him. When he asked me why his eyes don't match mine. Her lips trembled. Cole, please. I stepped back. Not far. Just enough to feel the space stretch between us. You had the chance to tell me the truth. You chose not to. The rain deepened. I could hear it smacking the windows now, like the sky had finally decided to scream for me. You think I didn't notice the way you flinched when I touched you? I said. The way you turned toward the wall at night. I saw it. I felt it. But I kept believing it was stress. Hormones. Anything but betrayal. She sank into the chair, face in her hands. I didn't want to lose you. You already did. The words came out quieter than I expected. Final. She sobbed once, sharp, wet, and guttural. And I hated how part of me wanted to kneel, to hold her. To tell her we could still fix this. But I knew better. This wasn't drywall. This was trust. And trust doesn't patch. It fractures. And then it caves in. I never wanted to see his face. That was the truth. I didn't want a voice to go with the name. I didn't want to look at the man who had undone me with soft hands and stolen hours. I didn't want to give him flesh and breath and height. But pain has its own gravity. Eventually, it pulls you in. His name was easy to track. Alex Mendoza. Graphic designer. 36. Lived in a loft downtown, above a vegan bakery and beside a Pilates studio that made Samantha feel centered when we still pretended we were okay. He had a public Instagram, a too-curated life. Beards and bike trails. Sun-drenched photos of craft cocktails and concert posters. No photos of Samantha, of course. He wasn't stupid. I watched him for 3 weeks. He always parked on the street. Always took the stairs. Always wore headphones. He ran on Sundays, drank smoothies on Mondays, and played pool on Thursday nights at a bar called Iris and Pine. That's where I went. I didn't follow him inside right away. I sat across the street in my truck, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. My heart felt like it was wrapped in wire. Tight. Ready to cut. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about seeing. About standing in front of him and letting him know I wasn't some shadow in Samantha's past. That I had a name. That I was the man she lied to for months while his hands were on her hips. At 9:14 p.m., I stepped inside. The place was dim, all amber lights and vinyl seats. The smell of whiskey and dust. He was by the back wall, one hand on a pool cue, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. And when I walked up to him, he didn't notice me at first. "Alex," I said. He turned. He smiled, confused, polite. "Yeah." I didn't smile back. "I'm Cole." His face changed. You could see it, the moment the gears shifted behind his eyes. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You don't know me," I said. "But you've been inside my house. Inside my wife." The words dropped between us like iron. His jaw twitched. "Look, man, I don't know what she told you." I stepped closer. "She told me enough. But I didn't come here for her." His eyes darted around, checking for exits. Witnesses. I could see the fear bloom in the corners of his confidence. He raised his hands. "I think you should leave." I nodded. Then hit him. Not hard. Not with rage. Just enough to feel it. To make contact. His lips split clean, like paper. He stumbled back, knocking over his drink. "Don't talk to her again," I said. "Don't call. Don't text. Don't even think about her. She made her choice. And you're just the ghost she chose to haunt our home with." He stared up at me, blood in his mouth. "You don't get to be the victim here," he said, spitting red onto the floor. "I'm not," I replied, voice calm. "I'm the witness." A bouncer grabbed my shoulder. I let him. I didn't fight. I was already done. Outside, the air was sharp with rain and neon. I walked to my truck. I didn't look back. Because what more was there to say? He wasn't some villain. Just a man who took what wasn't his and made a home inside it. But now he knew what it felt like. To be looked at. To be seen. Not as a lover. Not as a thrill. But as the fracture. And fractures? Fractures don't survive pressure. They shatter. It had started with a fight. Not the loud, table-slamming kind. Not with Cole. With herself. It was sometime in November. A late, gold-leaf afternoon when the shadows in her office stretched long and soft across the floor. She had been staring at the same spreadsheet for an hour, the numbers bleeding into each other, none of it making sense. Then her phone buzzed. "Alex, lunch? Same place?" She hadn't said no. They met at a small cafe with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs, an old haunt from college she used to go to alone when she wanted to disappear into the smell of books and cinnamon. He was already there when she arrived. A little unshaven, headphones around his neck, sketchpad open. His drawings were always like him, loose, magnetic, unapologetically unfinished. "You look tired," he said. She didn't answer. She just sat down and stared at him for a moment too long. I'm pregnant, she said. His pencil stopped. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at her, really looked. Not shocked. Not angry. Just, still. Coals. She flinched. No. He sat back, eyes flicking toward the window like the question might change if he gave it space. Are you sure? I ran the test, she said. Twice. Silence stretched between them, thin and tense, like a high wire. Outside, a delivery truck honked. Somewhere near the counter, a barista dropped a plate. Okay, he said at last. Okay. I wasn't going to tell you. I know. I still don't know if I should. Alex leaned forward, his hand wrapping around hers. She didn't move away. I never asked for this, he said softly. But I never asked you to disappear either. She laughed. Bitter. Tired. You're not a father, Alex. I didn't plan to be, he said. But you didn't plan to fall asleep on my chest in the middle of October either. Things happen. She looked at their hands. Her fingers still had paint on them from the nursery. She hated herself in that moment, for not pulling away. For how easy it felt to be here, with someone who saw only the part of her that had slipped through the cracks. They left the cafe without finishing their drinks. He didn't ask where they were going. It was a small, rented flat he used for work, a studio above a bookstore with warped floors and dusty sunlight spilling through half-open blinds. She'd been there twice before. Never for long. But this time was different. She didn't speak when he pressed her against the door. Didn't ask him to stop when his hands found her hips, when his mouth traced the curve of her collarbone. There was no urgency. No wild desperation. Only quiet. Only two people lying to themselves in opposite directions. His touch was careful, almost reverent. As if he was memorizing something he knew wouldn't last. She kept her eyes closed the whole time. Not because she wanted to forget where she was. But because she didn't want to see the look in his eyes when she came apart, when she whispered his name like it was a secret she hadn't earned the right to say out loud. Afterward, they lay in silence, her head on his chest, his fingers drawing invisible lines across her spine. You're going back to him, aren't you? He said. She didn't answer. Because they both knew she already had. The day before she went into labor, the hallway lights flickered. It was a soft, stuttering thing, like the house couldn't decide if it wanted to stay awake. Samantha didn't mention it. She was curled on the couch, one hand on her belly, eyes distant behind a glass of lemon water. I didn't ask for help. I just went to the garage, grabbed my tools, and opened the circuit panel like I'd done a dozen times before. There's something honest about fixing a wire. No lies. No pretense. A bad connection is a bad connection. A stripped screw doesn't pretend to love you. It just sits there. Waiting to be handled. The lights were tied to a junction box in the attic. I climbed the fold-out ladder slowly, my knees aching more than usual. It was hot up there, thick with insulation dust and the smell of dry wood. I found the box near the far wall, pried it open, and stared at the mess inside. She must have heard me up there. She must have known. But she didn't call out. And I didn't want her to. Because what could we say now? We were two people living a goodbye in slow motion. I reached in. Carefully. I always respected current. Electricity doesn't care who you are, it treats the guilty and the innocent the same. But something was off that day. Maybe I was distracted. Maybe I was tired. Maybe part of me didn't care. My fingertips brushed exposed copper, and the next second wasn't a second at all. It was heat. Noise. Light exploding behind my eyes like a solar flare. My jaw locked. My back slammed against the wooden beam behind me. It felt like being hit by memory. All of it. Samantha's laugh. The way she used to lean on the kitchen counter when I came home, barefoot and smiling. The first time she said she wanted a family. The ultrasound photo I still kept in my wallet, even after I knew it wasn't mine. And then, silence. I don't know how long I was out. When I opened my eyes, I was staring at the attic ceiling, mouth dry, heart hammering. There was a smell, burnt skin. A faint singe on my right hand. My wedding ring had left a red welt where the metal had met wire. I sat up slowly. Dazed. Dizzy. And for the first time in a long time, I laughed. Not loudly. Not bitterly. Just a breath of sound from a man who suddenly understood everything. I couldn't even fix a wire without it trying to kill me. I climbed down the ladder like I was descending from something higher than wood and dust. Something final. Samantha was asleep on the couch when I stepped back into the living room, one hand resting on her stomach. She looked peaceful. It was the first time in weeks she looked like she belonged to herself again. I didn't wake her. Instead, I went to the bedroom, packed my bag, one change of clothes, my tools, my father's watch. The folder with the DNA results, the screenshots, the photos. I placed it on the kitchen table. Right beside the lemon water. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say. The lights in the hallway had stopped flickering. Everything was working. And I was done fixing. He didn't leave a sound behind him. No door slam. No engine roar. Just, absence. When I woke, the lemon water was still cold on the table, but the folder next to it made my blood run colder. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. I knew what was inside. I'd known since the night I watched Cole find that long pause in his breath every time I touched him. He knew. Of course he did. I wanted to run after him. I didn't. I sat with it. I let the truth wash over me like a tide I couldn't swim against anymore. He was gone. Not just from the house. From us. And something in me, something I thought would shatter, just, stilled. The kind of stillness that only comes after the collapse. When the ruins are silent and the air is clear again. It wasn't until 2 days later that Alex came. He knocked, not like he owned anything, but like he didn't, and that made it worse. Or better. I couldn't tell. When I opened the door, I looked wrecked. Hair pulled back. No makeup. The kind of clothes that cling to new mothers not out of choice but necessity. The baby was asleep upstairs. She had Cole's mouth. Alex's eyes. He didn't say anything right away. Just stood there on the porch with a small bag in one hand and something unreadable in his face. Regret? Hope? I didn't want to name it. I wasn't sure if I should come, he said. I wasn't sure if I wanted you to. We stood there. Two people who had made a mess too big for apologies. I heard he left, he said. I nodded. I didn't ask him to, I said. He just disappeared. Alex stepped forward. He looked tired too. Guilt will do that to a person. I had worn it for months, like perfume under my skin. Do you hate me? He asked. No, I said. I hate myself. That's when he touched my face. So gently. Like he knew I'd pull away if it was anything more than that. But I didn't. I didn't pull away when he leaned in and kissed me, soft, searching. Not like a man claiming. Like a man asking. And I answered. Not because I loved him. I didn't even know what love meant anymore. But because I was exhausted. Because my heart was a hollowed-out room, and he was the only one standing in the doorway, not demanding to be let in, but waiting. We sat on the couch after that. He held my hand while I cried, quietly, into the space Cole used to sit. The house felt emptier than it should, even with a baby upstairs. Even with another man downstairs. But I stayed. Not out of passion. Not even out of hope. But because sometimes, when you burn the life you had to the ground, all you're left with is the ash of what came next. And you either choke on it. Or breathe it in.